Hey all, Pixel here, Improbable Garage. Day 2 of the terrible shipping container. So when we last left this, it was drying out in here. It is now basically dry. And it smells still, but not as bad. My partner pointed out that what it smells like is a garden center. So it's some sort of like fertilizer, chemically smell. I'm waiting on the metal from my friend to start doing the patchwork. I'm still locating some wood for the floors. I think I may have relied on some free pressure treated stuff. So that exact project is on hold. So my theory at the moment is that I'll get started on all the other stuff. So I want to paint the walls and ceiling in here, which is going to require a bit of prep. All this rust I just want to hit really quickly with a grinder and shoot it with something before I put the paint down. Basically whatever the cheapest enamel I think is what I'm going to go with, either Tractor Paint or Rust-Oleum or something like that, and just spray all this. Because I still have a lot of work to do, what I'm going to do is just paint down to about a foot shy of the floor, and then I can paint that later. I'm not worried about being perfect. Same thing, doors. I may get the stuff to do the roof too. But yeah, I'm going to get all the littler stuff that's not these major work done while I'm waiting for the parts for that. So I'm going to go make a parts run and a breakfast run. Oh yeah, it's first thing in the morning. The first job I had this morning, because I was talking to my neighbor about the container, is I ended up fixing the latches on his so they open easier. So I'm learning about containers and my neighbor's reaping the benefits. Awesome. I'll see you once I'm ready to work. And we're back and I got some paint. So I'm trying to do this as cheaply as possible, but still be halfway decent about it. So for the interior, because it's not going to be subject to a lot of sunlight and whatnot, we're going with the cheapest oil-based enamel you can find in white. The white is just to make it brighter in there. And then for the roof and some rust work, I got this stuff. It's aluminum paint. This is, as you can see, exterior oil-based paint for grain bins, blah, blah, blah. This is like the cheap, shitty version of the Master Series rust proofing paint that I use. It's aluminum suspension resin. This is not as good as that, but it's also, $40 for a gallon as opposed to the Master Series. It's exponentially more expensive. So this is going to get used mostly for the roof, also for some other odds and ends. And then where I use it on the sides, I'm going to paint over it. I got the catalyst hardener. This is going to get used for the exterior stuff, just to toughen it up a little bit. I got some brushes, I got some rollers, that kind of stuff. I still need to buy paint for the outside. I just didn't pick it up this trip because I'm hoping I can get it cheaper somewhere else than where I stopped. And I don't need it yet because I'm not quite at that step. Hard work. So I have the problem spots on the roof done. I'm not trying to do everything, but I'm just trying to knock all the loose stuff off and grind into any of the deeper rust spots, like that area I tried to get a pretty good job on. Same on the inside. I haven't decided if I'm doing the sides yet or not, because this is really hard work. It's really beating me up, especially my shoulders. But once I get as much done as I'm going to do today, I'm going to come in with the pressure washer on a finer tip. Blast all this clean. In the case of up here, I'm going to try and blast all this lichen and stuff off, because I'm not liking having that there when I paint. And then, yeah, silver paint with a little bit of hardener. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow. Don't really know. Whew. Hard work, but visible progress, so that's always good. I feel like I'm doing something, which makes it easier to keep going. Whew. Okay, so outside of the doors have all been done. The vertical pillar there has been done on the outside, and the sort of rail all the way around has been done so that I can do that as I'm doing the roof. I am absolutely wiped out, and my arms are gonna be noodles tomorrow. So last thing I'm going to do is another round of pressure washing in here with a tighter tip in hopes of knocking a little bit more of the ceiling off because it's flaking still. And then do the roof, see if I can get that lichen off and clean. That basically all the stuff that I just ground is going to get pressure washed. Everything has been pressure washed. Fan is going again in there. And this has all been done. In the process of getting all the lichen and everything off, it turned bright orange. So yeah, I gotta clean up now. That's gonna dry overnight. Move the fan a couple times like I did last time. And then tomorrow, silver paint. All right, next day, and we're doing some painting. It's a rather late day. Spent most of the day at a swap meet and then hanging out with some car people. So I'm just getting to this at the end of the day. And unfortunately, because I'm getting into it at the end of the day, I discovered some problems and I have to work around them. The biggest one being I don't have any paint trays big enough for a full-size roller. So I'm gonna have to work with these little rollers, which means I might just do edging today rather than do the whole roof, but we'll see. Yeah, but I'm just gonna get on I'm working on the theory right now if any paint I put on is paint I don't have to put on later. Alrighty, I actually got the whole roof painted. I'm not going to turn the camera on because I'm wearing a headlight, but I got the whole thing done. It's obviously going to need a second coat because I did this whole thing with a 2-inch brush. Ugh. It was mostly because I was getting momentum, so I just kept going. So what I'm going to do now is come in through here, and basically everywhere where I ground away rust, it's going to get silver paint, and then outsides of the door, same basic thing. This stuff's being untouched for now because I'm not sure if it's staying. And then these are going to get a coating. And also when I was doing it, tried to get that top rail as much as I could. I got all my stuff touched up in here, all the bare metal and rust spots. I didn't do the insides of the doors because these are galvanized and it's not actually down to the metal, most of that. But I did the front of the doors, I did those pillars. And realistically, I expected to be lucky if that can of silver paint was going to do the roof. The way it talks about square footage, I was surprised. I was like, maybe if I'm lucky, I'll get 2 coats out of the roof with that. But realistically, I did the whole roof and I did all of this stuff. And I've used maybe a quarter of it. So it should be enough that I can do the entire roof a second time. I can do I can use it for the rest of the box, the outside, touching up the rust and whatnot. But what I'm wondering is if I'm going to have enough that I might just be able to do the inside with it. Because all of this in here just needs 1 coat, realistically, to just, like the roof, it'll help seal that so it stops peeling as much, to make the rest of it just look a little bit nicer in here. I'm just wondering, maybe I'll just use the silver paint for that. Or I'll use silver paint for some of it, and whatever paint I use for the outside, if I have leftovers of that, I'll do the inside. Because that'll save me an entire can of paint, because I bought inside-outside white to do in here. And I did the white because I wanted it to be bright as possible in here. And silver would make it even brighter. So I'm kind of leaning towards that. Because if I return that can of white paint for like $15 more, I can get the can of white exterior paint to do the outside. And I'm still coming out way ahead at that point. So I'm really thinking that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do another coat on the roof of the silver. Once it's had a chance to dry, I'm going to use the silver for all of my touch-up, covering of metal on the outside. Basically use it like a primer. And then if I have enough left, I'll do all of here in it. And if I don't have enough for just that, I'll use a combination of that and whatever I have left over to do the outside. Because it's also telling me, the roof of this is probably equal to one side. very roughly, you know, in terms of square footage. So if I did the whole roof, one coat, with less than with about a quarter of a can, that means theoretically I can do both sides of the outside and the front and rear with one can of whatever white I get, which means I should have plenty of paint for everything. So that's actually good. That's going to save me some money. Another day, and we're jumping to another thing because I want to solve something that's been annoying me. It's dark in there, duh, but I went and picked up 2 of these lights. I already took one out of the package. These are just an incredibly cheap LED shop light, and then I picked up this from Harbor Freight, this long power strip. Basically my plan with those is I'm going to mount the power strip up here, and one light's going to get mounted near it and the other light's going to get mounted down there. This here is a piece of square channel or rectangular channel, whatever. It's got a void inside it, which means I can put a screw through from this side and not punch a screw out the other side. So unlike on the walls or the ceiling, I don't have to worry about creating a leak point. Yes, you have the coolest infinity. Oh, that's so much better. So yeah, one light mounted over here. You can't really see it in the shade, but the power strip is just beyond it, and then the other light down pretty much as far as I could at the other end. And then the cords are attached up there. The cords are attached up there, and then they come down here, and I can just hook an extension cord to it. This is literally the sum total of what I'm planning to do wiring-wise in here. I had plans for I'm going to run some conduit and put some lights in, but it was always going to run off an extension cord, and I just realized this is so much easier. I don't need a bunch of plugs and stuff in here, at least not with my current plan. Like the 2 woodworking benches, if I can set them up right here, there'll be power right there. Good enough. All right, another day. Still waiting for my friend to get back to me about the metal. I'm still trying to locate some wood for the floors. I had somebody I was going to pick it up from, and then as soon as it was, hey, what, when, and where, they've now vanished off the face of the earth. So I picked up some bowling alleys. These are like cheap, how do I describe this? They're not real wood bowling alleys. They're like a laminate. And apparently a bowling alley was closing down. Somebody got a bunch of the chunks of this, used what they could, and then was giving the rest of it for free. So I picked it up. My vague plan is to use this for making shelves in there. Basically, it was cheaper than plywood. Alrighty. So I basically did a quick grind on all the major rust spots all the way around. What I was mostly working on was the spots that had loose flaky paint. The theory of if it's rusty and it's got flaky paint, that's rust behind it. And I didn't get all of them because every time I look at it I see more that I missed. But I did a pretty good job. This side was way worse than the other side. And then everything got pressure washed just to get all the sanding dust as well as any existing grime off. I am not feeling well today, so I'm just gonna get to work. Plan for today, 2nd coat on the whole roof of the silver. That'll finish the roof. And then silver on all of the rust spots I ground down the other day. I did get some larger pans, so I can try using the roller on the roof. Hopefully that works and speeds up the process. Alrighty, so sides are done all the way around. The inside of the doors are done. I didn't get to do the roof because there's standing water in a couple of those low spots, which makes me think I might want to try and bump those up. Maybe put some wood on a jack or something and see if I can push those up. But I'm not going to worry about that right now, because even if I did it right now, I'd knock water onto all the painting I just did. But progress. I think, though, I have decided I'm going to wait until I get the rust fixed to do the final paint, at least on the outside. I don't really care as much about the inside. Just because I'm going to be doing it with a gun, so it seems to make sense to do it all at once. If the thing looks a little rough for a little longer, whatever. All right, back at it. A couple things. I went through with a 5-pound or 10-pound sledge and tried to bash some of these spots up where the water was collecting. Did it do anything? Probably not, but I figured it was worth a shot. I also brushed all the water off the roof so it has a chance to dry so I can paint up there. And then I was at the store trying to get parts for something else. And all of these 2x4s were on clearance for 50% off. I seem to have found the one moment that there was one head of the wood lumber department at a Lowe's who cared, because most of these are pretty decent, but he's like, nope, those are all terrible, they're not, nobody would buy them. 50% off, and I was like, better than some of the stuff I bought from your store, but okay, fine. So the end result is 19 2x4s by 8 for $35, and then another like $7 or $8 for the piece of pressure treated, which I'm going to use for at least the start of patching in. I just decided I'm going to go buy one board and start working, because now that I have something and I know what width it is, I can start cutting out the old floor where it needs to be fixed and basically decide what I'm doing. Yeah, so still waiting on the materials for the actual welding repair, but I can come in and I'll be able to cut a section out around, you know, basically find the two supports, wherever the heck they are, you know, cut out a section where I can drop in another board that'll let me fix the rust in that edge there, like, you know, going down, and I can do that for all the various spots. I think I've showed this before, but this whole section over here is pretty darn iffy. So I'm probably, where's the line? I think that's where the next row is. I'll figure it out. But basically I'm going to come in and take, you know, from about here over, just replace that as a chunk, either with plywood or with multiple boards. Over here, a chunk needs to come out. Over here, this is the area I'm still really unsure on, because this is really rough. Like this whole half of this plywood, whatever this, I guess it's, yeah, it's like a really thick plywood, is all really not pleasant, but only over there looks sketchy enough that it feels like it needs to be replaced. So I'm just trying to, I haven't decided. Because this is, I believe, 1.5" ply, if what I'm reading online is correct. You can't buy 1.5" ply. I would have to layer up multiple layers of plywood, or I'd have to build it all out of, you know, 2 by whatever lumber, which is nominal 1.5. It's nominally 2, actual 1.5, so it should more or less match the floor height. All right, so this got interesting. All of my online research, and unfortunately, you know, thanks to AI, God knows how much it's worth anything, said that the floors of these things were 1.5" plywood. I foolishly assumed that they meant actual 1.5", not like every other piece of lumber these days where there's the measurement they say and then there's the measurement that it is, which has no resemblance. But this that I just cut out, it's like 1 1/8. Yeah, 1 1/8 versus the 2" board that I have here, which is just over 1/2", not quite 5/8, or 1 5/8 rather. And then there's also a step. You can see in this piece better that there's a step here for the lip on the edge. I just assumed it was sitting up on that lip. I didn't realize that it was cut for it. So I'm going to have to break out the table saw to both cut that lip in these and see if I can shave these down, because I don't have a planer and it's not worth running this, you know, going and finding a planer and running this through it, so it doesn't have to be perfectly accurate. So this is all You know, there's caulking along the edge here that I chipped off. And like, there's rust here, but nothing really worrying. So I'm gonna, and then this is pretty much okay. There's definitely rust under this paint, but like, this isn't rotted away down here in any meaningful way. It's just rusty. There is definitely some serious rust down here, but that's not doing enough that I care. Actually, that's not even the main piece. That's maybe this. Anyway, yeah, I'm not gonna worry too much about that. I'm in fact going to ignore that because I'd rather not think about it. But that's like, it will take years, if not decades, before that could even be possibly an issue. If this was still a shipping container, that'd be an issue because of the way they get loaded and abused and whatnot. But for what I'm doing, it's fine. All right, did not get as much done as I'd hoped. I cut and fit that one, but the bit I have left, it's not long enough for the damage I found over here. So I think I need to go back to the hardware store tomorrow, look at all plywood and see if they either have something that's the height I need or something that I can stack, you know, buy 8x4, stack it on the top of itself. And then that'll give me the right height because I don't mind putting in strips along here, but I don't want to fill in a whole area if every single board I have to figure out how to, you know, plane down or whatever, since I don't have a planer. Not having this metal is really screwing me. I figured that was going to be the first repair, and it's not. I did figure something out that I'm sure anybody who's worked with these knows already, but a 2x4 down basically fits in these. Obviously they'd fit better if it wasn't damaged and the 2x4 wasn't bowed, but these fit in here. So what I can do is when I build the shelving, you know, I can tuck one leg in there and another one in whichever rib matches up with the end of it. And then over on this wall, I can tuck one in here, and that'll just save me a little bit of space. You know, hey, I can gain an extra 2 inches of depth, or 1.5 inches of depth. You know, pull my shelving in that much tighter. Hell yeah. It's another day. Things have escalated. I realized with the amount of rust that's in there, it's easier to just cut this whole section out. Put one long board in and piece it there and there. Got this all cut free. I've got to cut up there in that corner. I did find something, which is going to make my life so much easier. This is deck boarding. It's 5/4 inch, and it is a close enough match to the height of this floor. It's not exact, it's a little bit shorter, but it is close enough that if it bugs me, I can shim it, and if it doesn't bug me, I can just leave it and maybe sand the edge of the existing floor to just bevel it a little bit, but it's gonna be so much easier than trying to rip that other stuff. There was one type of plywood, 19/32, 2 of which was exactly the height of the floor, but I couldn't get that in pressure treated or sheet, like any sort of like treated stuff. So that was just gonna be a poor choice. So this is a good compromise. In fact, there's a lot more rot in this floor. Sorry, not the floor, the under bracing that I realized. I'll show you that as soon as I get this free. But I've decided to largely ignore that, maybe put a couple, weld in a couple reinforcements here and there, but by and large, I've decided I don't care. There's a lot of rot in here. Like, that's supposed to be steel. It's not. This corner is pretty bad. That's rotting completely through right there. Over here, pretty bad. That's pretty bad. I can put my finger through that brace. Yeah, see? This is all, this is a like ceiling. Wow, that's even worse than I thought it was. You see the braces, the cross braces themselves are rotted out along this edge here. Yeah, that's not good. So I got what I paid for. I mean, yeah, this is a little worse than I thought, but whatever. I'm only sort of going to care about this because in theory, with no more water coming in, this will be less of a problem. Oh, that's rotted over there too. See? So there's like a C channel. On the sides it's this way, on the front it's this way, and that's kind of rotted. What I think I'm going to just do, take a piece of, I'm going to clean this up real quick and dirty, and then I'm just going to take a piece of like 1-inch strap, or maybe some L channel if I have some, and just tack weld it along in there. Same thing like where these cross. Just going to take that, tack it along in here to basically rebuild that edge so the floor is something to sit on. These are gone. These 3 are completely toast, so I may weld a piece on just sticking out, put it under the floor. That's still structural. There's no metal for a couple of inches there and several inches there. So those I'm going to probably tuck that metal further under and then put a screw in here to like hold that end of it up. Frustrating. Not surprising. Not sure what I'm going to do with the corner. I may or may not care. I may just weld a plate over it. I may just seal it up. See, I want this project to be done, and not having the outside steel is slowing everything down, and it's making me more frustrated by shit like this that I should have expected. But because I can't fix the core problem, holes in the outside wall, this just makes me more frustrated. But I'm gonna get an angle grinder in here, clean all this up, and then I've got my sandblaster. I'm gonna use that inside the areas where the angle grinder doesn't work. So this is all paintable. Figure out what I'm doing as far as welding something in there, drag the welder in here, weld that in, and then start putting flooring in. Alrighty, stuff has happened. I went and got the needle scaler, which is missing a lot of needles these days, because I was like, wow, this has got a lot of scale. How the hell am I going to get it off? Oh wait, I have a tool for that. So this all looks way better, and there's a ton of loose scale. Yeah, we'll call that some good, some bad. But I think this should be good enough for my ability to give a shit. So yeah, I need to clean all this up because like I'm not even joking. There's so much. Like, there. Get a little bit of paint on this. Weld some metal in. I don't know. We'll do something. Yeah. Oh, by the way, the holes here. So much more. And there's one over there now. And there's one there. And oh, good. There's a whole bunch more. There's some there. There's one there. Those I knew about. Progress continues to be made. So I'm now at the state. Everything's been gone over the needle scaler. Same thing over there. Sprayed everything down with the phosphoric acid so it can do some of its rust conversion. I'm not going to do a perfect job. I don't care. Welded in some supports here to replace that damaged part. This is just some crappy L that I had. Unfortunately, I burned through the last of a 30-pound spool of wire, so I'm going to need to buy more wire before I can do welding. Everything down sort of under floor level is going to get sprayed with just Rust-Oleum because there's no good way to get a brush in all of that, I don't think. I don't know, I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm leaning towards, I'm just going to spray it, call it good enough. And then cut a board to length, screw it in, cut some boards to length over here, screw them in, and then it'll be done. The first test fit, there's some pieces of pressure treated acting as supports on the side closest to us. And it's pretty much okay. It's a little tight in that corner. I might be able to just hammer it down and be fine. And then it's floating over on that end because that end lip had so much material fall off the top of it that it's lower than it was, and I think it was already lower over there. But yeah, because if I'm looking at that correctly, there isn't there's no lip cut here like there is on the sides. So that end is supposed to be lower, and at the height of these, the side is up a little bit. So I think I'm just gonna live with that. I can't think of anything good to put under that isn't just gonna become even more of a moisture trap. So I think we're gonna call that good enough. So I need to do the final bit of paint in there. I need to cut all the short ones for over here. And then, yeah, we put the floor in. And we call this side done, and we just pretend we didn't see anything of that under there. It'll be fine. The center is still plenty solid. And if at some point in the future the floor drops, I'll know why. The ends are rotted out. And I'll deal with that then. All right, here we go. Good as it's gonna get. I'm gonna seal it up and pretend I never saw any of that. All right, and we're done. Floor is in, mostly screwed down. The back lip here, whether original or what I put in, is really damn thick and hard to drill through with these self-tapping screws. So I may come back later and with a drill, the proper bit on it, and drill a couple holes and put a couple more screws in. But for now, it's in place. It's solid enough, it's not going anywhere. On this side, this is a different style of metal, and that is fine. This is all nice and solid. That piece is in. So now, from about 4 feet from the door back, the floor is solid. Now though, I need to come in and cut a chunk out. You can see how far back I was able to find rock, so I'll go back to the next cross member, which is here. Do a strip there. And then over on this side, because this is all kind of janky, I'm going to start by taking a chunk out as far back as I need to go there, sort of see what that wood looks like, and then decide if I'm patching to the next cross member like I did at the back, or if I'm taking out this whole sort of nasty looking section all the way back to, behind it. I have enough wood that I can do, well, I probably have enough wood. I was guesstimating in the store. So I have enough wood or near enough, buy another board. I can do all the work and buy another board and finish it out. But I haven't decided if I want to do that yet. I did try over here to come in and put, this center is humped up a little bit, you can see, because the screws are no longer holding. I tried to put another screw in and the wood there is just messed up enough. Like it's not rotten in the way that it's not structural, but I tried to put a screw through and it just sort of tore through. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do there either. I'm trying to thread the line here, not too much work because it's just an old rusty shipping container, and fix all the problems before I move my crap in. So it's a juggling act. I think I'll start by cutting the strip out over here and start by cutting sort of the L out of here. This one I cut the L out of over there. I'm actually wondering, do I have enough of the old floor there to patch there? Probably not. I don't think I have enough length in the clean unrotten section. But I'm going to measure that and make sure, because, oh no, worst case the answer is no. I just did some measuring. I do not have enough for over here. This is like 46 inches and I have 30 something. But I did notice something, which is the first set of screws is here. So that's not the end, that's not the cross member, the first cross member. The first cross member's just inside here. So what I probably can do is take out that section. And as long as the floor looks solid at that point, I think I'm gonna patch that in here, assuming the wood's good, and then make up the extra little bit over here, either with some of the pressure treated or with some other part of this, if there's another part that's solid, because I don't need this whole length. If there's another piece that's solid and unrotted on that, I'll use that, because the nice thing about that is the floor height will be perfect. There'll be no step down, step up. I'll know the material is strong, like there'll be no ambiguity that this area that's going to get a lot of traffic will be able to handle it as well as the original floor, because it's the original floor, it's just been moved. That I like that plan. Obviously, if there's more rot and I have to go further back, I'll just use the pressure treated stuff. Good news! Way less problems up this end. There's surface rust, there's some, you know, flaking and whatnot, but there's none of the like deep corrosion that was on the back. Like this is rusty. It's not good, but it's not rotten the way that, you know, all these cross members are still very structural. And then we come over on this side and it's even better. Like there's basically nothing over there. As gnarly as this piece is, as far as like looking all beat up, it is plenty solid by the time I got this far back. The front edge, I think was it this piece? No, this is the one that was over there. That was pretty bad. The front edge over here, like it was bad, but it's just, and honestly, it's this, like this bit that sat on top of the metal that's really the problem. So I can put in a piece, like it's so much better at this end that like these still look like screws. I probably could, if I grabbed them with the channel lock, twist them out, and none of those were survived on the other end. So all of this is going to get cleaned up. It's going to need way less work than the other part. Like I'm barely going to need the scaler. That's how much better this side is. This center beam here is bent up. That's what the whole problem is here, is that this somehow got pushed upwards somewhere back there, because it's floating here and it's floating here. So what I think I'm going to try and do is, once I get it, I'm going to cut the piece that fits here, but I'm not going to screw it down just yet, because what I think I'm going to try and do is, once I get the new welding wire, come in here, clamp this and force it down with like a big C clamp or whatever until it's actually touching, and then weld it here and weld it here, maybe even weld it here if I can. This will still look ugly as hell back here because the top layer or two of the plywood is messed up, but this is all solid. It was just this that was the problem. And yeah, that's all fine. I'm not going to be doing any work in here today because I'm sure you can hear it's raining, and it's actively coming in through the holes. Alrighty, back at it. Basically, I'm going to be doing the same thing I did on the other in the back, hitting all of this with the needle scaler and the grinder probably, do some quick and dirty rust proofing, and then cut some boards and put them in. So all the rust stuff is done, with one tiny exception, which is that I still need to weld that center spine down. I bought more wire for the welder. Unfortunately, on that trip we took my partner's car and she's out running errands right now, and I didn't realize it was in her car and not one of mine until I started working, and so I have to wait till she gets home so I can put the wire in the welder and I can put that tack in. But I'm going to do kind of everything I can around it. Next up is cut the wood. This is going to be easy, nice clean strip. Nice clean strip. This is going to be a little more complicated because I'm going to use that bit that I cut out of the other part, and then there's some patching that I'm going to have to do. Yeah, I painted the whole sill because I was here anyway. The front still needs to be done, but at least the sill will have paint on it. That's always a bonus. Got my welds in there. Oh, that's way better. Definitely popped up a bit on the other side, but this is no longer, this was proud here by almost an inch. So that's going to help the floor sit properly. Alrighty, and everything is cut and in. I ran out of screws, so I'm going to have to buy another box to screw this all down. But the two end ones got a few screws in them to hold them in place, and those aren't going anywhere. I'm really glad I was able to do this with the floor. That doesn't even care that it looks better, it's just going to be a nicer step in. Because there's not going to be any weird transitional height issues or whatever. Alrighty, next got some screws. So that big panel's screwed down now. The little one's not screwed down because I'm not quite sure what I'm doing there. I might be using that as a hatchway to get the wiring out. You'll see that in another video. But the big issue is I still haven't gotten the steel. The person I was supposed to be getting it from has disappeared off the face of the planet. Don't know what's going on there. So I was just running local metal supermarket, doesn't carry Corten steel. Not quite sure I want to do it with regular steel yet. So failing that, metal repair tape. All right, that's basically what I've done for all of the holes. Just taped it up with metal tape. And then the next time we have a couple dry days in a row when the roof is dry, and I put the second coat on there, I'm just going to hit all that with the silver paint at the same time. But I'm not going to wait to put that on this video because it's more painting. You've seen plenty of that. So that's it for now. Unfortunately, I wish I could have gotten it all done, but not getting that steel kind of stalled the whole project out. And I want to move on to other stuff. This has taken over my life for a bit. So we're just going to call the container stabilized at this point. And then once I get the steel, I will revisit it, cut all that, weld it, do the final paint and everything. But for now, this is good enough that it means I've got a solid floor in here. It's watertight. It's not going to degrade in any meaningful way now. And that means I can move on to fitting it out and moving all my crap in here. So that's going to be it. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will talk to you later. Bye.